History, as they say, doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And when it comes to United States foreign policy toward Israel, the rhyme scheme is so consistent it's practically a limerick, albeit a deeply unsettling one. There appears to be a clear and enduring pattern in how the United States government responds when its ally, Israel, takes actions that harm others, including American citizens. This pattern is one of immediate defense, followed by a quiet acceptance of Israel's narrative and a firm refusal to impose any meaningful consequences. It's a political reflex that has been honed over decades, creating a shield of impunity that protects one nation's government from accountability, no matter the cost. This isn't some grand conspiracy theory whispered in shadowy corners of the internet. It is a demonstrable sequence of events, visible in plain sight if one simply looks. We can trace this pattern from a sun-drenched day in the Mediterranean in 1967 right up to the harrowing headlines coming out of Gaza and the West Bank today. The playbook seems remarkably unchanged. First, an incident occurs where Israeli forces are accused of egregious violence. Second, the United States government expresses concern but ultimately accepts the Israeli explanation. Third, powerful political forces in Washington work tirelessly to ensure that no substantive action is taken, leaving victims without justice and questions unanswered. Let's be clear about what we are examining. This is not about questioning a nation's right to exist or defend itself. This is about accountability. It's about asking why the normal rules of international relations and consequences for one's actions seem to be suspended in this one specific relationship. We will look at two distinct moments in time: the attack on a United States Navy ship, the USS Liberty, and the ongoing situation in the Palestinian territories. By laying out the facts of each case, we can see how the official response from Washington, D.C. has created a dangerous precedent that continues to have devastating effects. The core of this issue lies in a simple yet profound question. Why does the United States government appear to prioritize the political comfort of an ally over justice for its own citizens and for other victims of that ally's military actions? The journey from the USS Liberty to Gaza is a long and tragic one, but it is a journey that reveals a great deal about how power, influence, and political lobbying can shape foreign policy, often with a complete disregard for the human cost. Understanding this pattern is crucial because it affects not only those directly harmed, but also the credibility and moral standing of the United States on the world stage. On June 8, 1967, during the Six-Day War, the USS Liberty, an American intelligence ship, was sailing in international waters. It was clearly marked, flying a large American flag. Without warning, Israeli fighter jets began a relentless assault on the vessel. They strafed the deck with rockets and cannon fire, specifically targeting the ship's communication arrays to prevent it from calling for help. The initial attack was followed by more jets dropping napalm, a horrifying incendiary weapon. This was not a brief, accidental burst of fire. It was a sustained and coordinated military operation against a ship belonging to a supposed friend and ally. After the aerial bombardment crippled the ship, the assault continued from the sea. Israeli torpedo boats moved in and fired torpedoes at the wounded vessel. One torpedo struck the ship's intelligence-gathering spaces, killing 25 Americans in an instant. The torpedo boats then circled the burning ship, machine-gunning firefighters, stretcher-bearers, and even the life rafts that had been deployed into the water. This detail is particularly chilling, as it suggests an intent not just to disable the ship, but to ensure there were no survivors to tell the tale. In total, 34 Americans were killed and 174 were wounded in the attack. The official response from both Israel and the United States was swift, and for the survivors, deeply insulting. Israel claimed it was a tragic case of mistaken identity. They said they thought the Liberty was an Egyptian ship. The United States government, under President Lyndon B. Johnson, quickly and publicly accepted this explanation. This was despite the fact that survivors reported Israeli reconnaissance planes circling them for hours beforehand. The American flag was flying clearly. The ship's markings were visible. Yet the official story of a simple tragic mistake was locked into place, and the White House seemed determined to move on. In the aftermath, accountability was non-existent. Survivors were ordered by their superiors to remain silent, threatened with court-martial if they spoke to the press about what truly happened. To this day, the United States Congress has never held a full, public investigation into the attack on its own naval vessel. The official inquiries were brief, heavily redacted, and seemed designed to support the mistaken identity narrative rather than uncover the truth. The men who were killed and wounded, and their families, were denied justice. A precedent was set. Even when American lives are lost, protecting the United States-Israel alliance from embarrassment is the top priority. Fast forward to the present day, and the echoes of the Liberty incident are deafeningly loud in Gaza and the West Bank. For years, and with terrifying intensity since late 2023, Israel has conducted military operations in Gaza that have resulted in the deaths of tens of thousands of Palestinians, many of them women and children. Entire neighborhoods have been flattened by airstrikes. Hospitals, schools, and refugee camps have been hit. While Israel states its goal is to target militants, the scale of civilian casualties and destruction has led to accusations of war crimes from numerous international bodies, including the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice. The response from the United States government follows the familiar pattern. On one hand, officials express mild concern over the high number of civilian deaths and call for Israel to do more to protect innocent life. On the other hand, the United States continues to send billions of dollars in military aid, including the very bombs and munitions being used in Gaza. It has repeatedly used its veto power at the United Nations Security Council to block resolutions calling for a ceasefire or condemning Israeli actions. This sends a clear message to the world. Our words of concern are for show, but our material and diplomatic support is unconditional. Meanwhile, in the occupied West Bank, a slower but equally relentless process of displacement unfolds. Israeli settlers, often with the explicit protection of the Israeli military, continue to build illegal settlements on Palestinian land. They harass Palestinian farmers, destroy olive groves, and engage in violence with near total impunity. The United States government officially considers these settlements an obstacle to peace, yet it has done nothing of substance to stop their expansion. Again, gentle verbal rebukes are offered, but no meaningful pressure, such as conditioning aid or imposing sanctions on violent settler groups, is ever applied. The lack of consequences is just as stark here as it is in Gaza. The victims in this modern context are the Palestinian people. Families have been torn apart, generations have grown up under military occupation, and any hope for a sovereign, independent state has been systematically dismantled. Just as the sailors on the USS Liberty found that their own government would not stand up for them, Palestinians have found that the world's most powerful nation will not stand up for their basic human rights when those rights conflict with the political agenda of its ally. The pattern of impunity established in 1967 continues to enable immense suffering today, demonstrating a consistent policy of shielding Israel from any real accountability for its actions. So why does this pattern persist? The answer lies in the immense power of political influence and lobbying in the United States. Pro-Israel lobbying groups, most famously AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, wield enormous influence in Washington. They spend vast sums of money to support political candidates who toe the line on pro-Israel policies, and to fund attack ads against those who dare to offer criticism. This creates a political climate where questioning United States policy toward Israel is seen as a career-ending move for many politicians, who fear being labeled anti-Israel or losing their next election. This influence extends beyond campaign donations. It shapes the entire political discourse. For decades, a narrative has been carefully constructed that portrays Israel as an unshakable ally whose security is paramount, often conflating the actions of the Israeli government with the safety of Jewish people worldwide. This makes any criticism of Israeli policy fraught with political danger. We see politicians from both parties fall in line, repeating the same talking points and voting for aid packages with little to no debate. This system ensures that the United States government's support for Israel remains unconditional, regardless of who is in the White House or which party controls Congress. The victims of this system are clear. The primary victims are, of course, the Palestinians who endure the daily reality of occupation, blockade, and military violence. But the American sailors of the USS Liberty were also victims, sacrificed for the sake of political expediency. American taxpayers are also impacted as their money funds a foreign military that acts with impunity, sometimes against United States interests and even United States citizens. This unwavering, uncritical support ultimately undermines America's credibility as an honest broker for peace and a champion of international law and human rights. It exposes a deep hypocrisy at the heart of United States foreign policy. Studying these events, from the deck of the USS Liberty to the streets of Gaza, is essential for understanding the present. It is not about assigning blame for the past, but about recognizing a destructive pattern that continues to shape our world. It reveals how special interests can capture foreign policy, leading to a system where there is no accountability for the powerful. Only by acknowledging this uncomfortable truth can we begin to have an honest conversation about a more just and equitable approach. One that values the lives of Palestinians and Americans alike, and one that holds all nations, including our friends, to the same standard of conduct.